Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
So look, yesterday was a very, very good day. We made a lot of good progress. We did exactly what we wanted to do, which is accomplish 4 things for the American people. First, we wanted to build a mechanism for keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. It is open. We've seen, of course, gas prices and oil prices come down, millions and millions of barrels of crude and natural gas flowing through the Strait of Hormuz that weren't flowing before. But we also wanted to make sure that we actually set up the coordination mechanism so that we could demine the Straits of Hormuz, so that when there are the conflicts that inevitably come up, we can make sure we work through them rather than that leading to escalation, and that is exactly what we did yesterday. Number 2, we also wanted to build a mechanism, a similar mechanism, for deconfliction for the regional ceasefire. As the President of the United States has himself said, sometimes these ceasefires just mean you're shooting a little bit less, but we wanted to make sure that we had the proper coordination set up so that if there is shooting, if Hezbollah fires at Israel or if Israel responds, if there are other conflicts that arise in the region, we're actually talking to each other and figuring out how to stop the shooting, how to make the region safer, our allies and everybody else. We set that up as well. Number 3, and this is probably what we're most excited about as Americans, the Iranians have agreed to invite IAEA inspectors back into their country. That is a major milestone for the American people and the first step in permanently denuclearizing or permanently ending a nuclear weapons program in Iran. And that's exactly what we wanted to do. That's exactly what we asked to happen. We made a lot of great progress on other nuclear talks. And that leads me to the final thing that we wanted to accomplish, which is actually set up the process for the technical negotiations that will follow. Our teams working with the Iranians, the Qataris, and the Pakistanis made great progress yesterday. They will continue to work at the technical level with the teams here in Bergenstock, and then those technical negotiations are going to continue over the weeks and days to come. We wanted to set up a structure for that so that you could have proper political oversight, but obviously, as much as this place is very beautiful, I can't stay here for the next 60 days. I'm about to go back home to the United States, but the technical teams are going to be working with proper oversight to make sure that we're accomplishing the objectives that matter for everybody. So those are the things that we wanted to accomplish. We came here, we did exactly that. The way that I think about it is very simple. We laid a very good foundation for a successful final deal. The final deal is the house. We set the foundation. We haven't built the house, but we've laid a successful foundation to get to a good place for the American people. I think it's important for all of us to appreciate how much was done, but honestly, there is still a lot to do as we continue to make progress on the nuclear talks, on the economic talks, as we continue to demine the straits and ensure that that flow of traffic continues to pick back up. A lot of progress, but still some work to do, and we're very committed to doing exactly that. So,
folks, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and we're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, today we're cutting through the noise on the biggest story in the world. You saw it. Real efforts for peace in the Middle East and to stop the killing in Ukraine while the wars continue to rage across multiple fronts. Well, from Switzerland, you just heard JD Vance lay out what the U.S. accomplished at the Lake Lucerne Summit. The Iranians agreed to let IAEA inspectors back into the country as a major first step towards ending their nuclear weapons program. 4 big accomplishments negotiated in one day. Come on, man. We're going to talk about what that deal means for Lebanon and whether Hezbollah is getting a lifeline out of these talks. And then we're going to shift to the Ukraine issue and see what President Trump said about it, especially since the Iran peace deal appears to be getting on the tracks. You know, he told Macron, the French guy, that he's had good conversations with both Putin and Zelensky, and both leaders are open to a deal. Maybe we can do something, the president said, and we cannot ignore the brutal reality on the ground, the battle over energy and infrastructure, and the killing of Russians and Ukrainians. Russian drones just struck a cargo ship in the Black Sea and killed civilians in Ukraine as Moscow continues to use every weapon in its arsenal, including energy, leverage, and sanctions warfare. And that's on both sides. To break all this down with no spin and no filter is a man who's been there and here, retired special ops pilot, CDM Press President and CEO, Patriot, fearless truth teller, Todd Wood. Todd, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Rob, thank you. Glad to be back. Enjoy the show.
Thank you. It's a Monday, and I've been out for a little bit, other than one day last week, and I'm having all kinds of tech stuff go on that you guys maybe, hopefully, are not seeing, but it is happening here on live TV, man. All right, so I had to play that clip of Vice President Vance, Todd, because there had just been a craziness of disinformation campaigns going from all directions over the last 48 hours. I guess, first of all, what do you make of all that?
Well, just to take a step back, I was against this war getting into it. I didn't want it to happen, but I said to you in the past, now that we're here, I want a good outcome for the country and for our military and for the world, actually, energy-wise, economic-wise, destruction-wise. And I just think that that what is happening is good. We need to support it. The Trump administration is doing the right thing. And I'm completely behind President Trump in this. There's a lot of, you're right, there's an IO going on, there's an information war. What bothers me is the desire and apparent desire to make America fail. And that is what I don't want, because the consequences of that globally will be horrendous. If our power is weakened substantially, our future for our children is not going to be good. So I'm behind the president. I want a deal. I want the war to end, and I want the energy supplies to be opened up, the fertilizer supplies to be opened up, so we don't have a mass famine. And so that's where I'm at, and I'm hopeful that president has the leverage to push this through, and that's what I'm trying to aid him in.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just remind everybody that I was like, probably not a great idea to go in and bomb them. And I even said the best way to get the nuclear stuff is to send a commando raid in and take it. That's the only surefire way to get that done. So I'm glad to see that they're giving it the extra mile. I think the president is a dead serious kind of man, whether he's killing you or whether he's trying to get you to peace. He's dead serious. And I don't think a lot of people really understand that about Mr. Trump. And I think JD Vance is very, very close to that, if not identical, in those areas. Now, we haven't seen him make the decision on whether he would actually put the hammer down on the Iranians or not. But he sure does communicate the message the way the president needs him to. Why do you think people are attacking Vance specifically, Todd? That seems like it's a little off the target. You would think they'd be going after Trump.
Well, because they see him as the successor, and that this is all about stopping what is happening in a much bigger picture, the restoration of our republic. And this war is just, unfortunately it happened, but we're here. And I think the other side is using that in a variety of ways to try to bring down Trump and his agenda domestically and even with globally, with NATO and other, agendas that he's had on the table, whether it be peace with Russia, whether it be solving the Iran situation, cleansing China in our Western hemisphere, stopping the election fraud in the U.S., finding accountability for the people that did the mass murder with the vaccines. And, I think all of that is on the table. And what you're seeing is a complete no holds barred attempt to use whatever leverage kernels of truth they can. The president's not perfect. Our government is not perfect. Our allies aren't perfect, but we have to, they're using any negative thing they can to try to bring down his agenda. That's what I see happening from a macro standpoint.
Yeah, and people seem to think that they can get away with outright falsehoods, and nobody will be able to tell on them. I think well, it was purported to be the Iranians that said, no,
Yep.
the strait's closed. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. We're walking away from the deal. I mean, we've heard all those messages over the last 48 hours, and it turns out that's why I played JD's clip, is none of that was actually true. And we have forces in the Strait of Hormuz. They saw no indication that anybody was trying to do anything stupid.
Well, yeah, it's part of the information war, right? I mean, and the Iranians are very shrewd negotiators. The regime, the head of that government, and whatever it is now, and I think that's one of the issues, is that it's a little nebulous as to who actually is leading the country. Maybe Trump knows now, but I think it was up in the air for a while. And they're very shrewd, and they're out for their interests as an oligarchy, and we're trying to fight it. So it's a real dual match here.
Yeah, so the main point of all this has been the nuclear material, the enriched uranium that's close to weapons grade enriched uranium, and that turns out to be a large facet of the MOU. It turns out that's one of the four things the vice president talked about that they've now agreed to let IAEA inspectors back in, which haven't been there for many, many years. But do you think we need to go further than that and get Americans in there?
No, I don't want Americans on the ground. And that, I think what Trump is doing actually is the only good alternative. So I don't want American forces on the ground. I mean, if the president believes we have to, I'm
not talking about forces. I'm talking about inspectors.
We could probably, that's like a detail that can be worked out, right?
I think that's the next attack vector, is they're going to say, well, you couldn't trust the IAEA in the first place. That really doesn't mean anything. I don't agree with that because the fact that they let them back in is the issue. It's the important part of that issue, not necessarily whether they were reliable or not in the past. But do you think they'll try to get some American inspectors in there?
I haven't even thought of that. I mean, that's like a next level, I guess, down the road that I haven't even considered. I mean, it would be good, obviously, to get somebody in there we trust, or we have some kind of agreement with that they have a level of trust with, whether it be official they've dealt with before. I'm sure it's like a jury pool, right? I mean, you're going to have to get people in there some people in there that you trust.
Yeah. I found it interesting because, we've had varying degrees of damage levels discussed about the facilities, and that the uranium is dust and those kind of things. It just makes me wonder what's left to inspect.
It's going to be difficult because they have, it's been reported they had, we bombed it, and then they bombed some of the entrances to prevent us to get in there again. And who knows what tunnels they've got built from the backside or whatever. I would think our intelligence knows what's there. And I think that, Trump, that's his main thing. If he can get that solved, and we've obviously degraded their military substantially, it can be rebuilt over a decade or so, but I think you've given a decade for the U.S. to find another way forward with Iran, whether it be economic cooperation or something that takes the threat off the table for us.
Yeah, and they said at the beginning of the MOU process that, if Iran performs properly, then we'll do things. Just saw before we came on the air that Secretary Bessent has temporarily waived the oil exporting sanctions against the Iranians. What do you think? What do you make of that? It sounds to me like what Vance has been talking about the last 3 or 4 days is all accurate. He's not lying.
Well, you've had a very coordinated, very strong and shrill campaign to say that Iran won, Trump failed, America's been humiliated. We didn't get anything. It's the shtick I saw recently. Well, it's Obama's deal, except we also give them $300 billion. That's the latest. So I don't think that's the case. I think there are steps that are going to be I guess made sure happen to make sure we get a result that we can live with. And that's what we want, right? We don't want another full-scale war. So the other side was against the war, and which I understand, but now that the war's ending and a good solution is coming, they're against that too. It's like the reflecting pool. Trump made it better, but we got to destroy it because Trump made it better. I mean, that's that's what's going on here in a bigger scale, I think.
Talk about sabotage, all this talk. I got to take a break, but we'll come back and talk about the Lebanon question and Israel.
Sure.
I think we need to dive into that because that's part of what's happening here, folks.
Sure, it is.
It's the end of the world, but it's really not. I think we might have a deal coming. We'll be right back with Todd Wood.
Take a look at the water you just poured. It looks clean. It tastes fine. But what's really in it? Lead, fluoride, arsenic, chlorine, pesticides, PFAS forever chemicals, pharmaceutical residues, and bacteria. Every single day, these toxins flow straight from your tap into your glass, into your family. It's time for Sentry H2O from Worldview Water. Sentry H2O is the ultimate water treatment technology, designed to remove harmful toxins, balance your water's pH, and enrich it with essential minerals like calcium and magnesium, the way nature intended. From commercial-scale systems to whole-house filtration to crisp, delicious drinking water right at your kitchen sink and shower, Sentry H2O delivers cleaner, healthier water everywhere you need it. No plumber, no tools, no plumbing knowledge required. Perfect for homes, apartments, rentals, RVs, refrigerators, and more. Because everyone deserves access to clean, healthy water. Visit worldviewwater.net. That's worldviewwater.net.
Yeah, it sounds like the Americans got two major agenda items crossed off during this meeting in Switzerland overnight. The big headline here, Iran, according to Vice President Vance, has agreed to allow inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency back into their country. This is huge, and it's very important as it relates to the detailed discussions on Iran's nuclear program, so that these inspectors can get a list of what the Iranians still have and what the Americans want them to get rid of. The second headline here, that Special Envoy Kushner was able to work out a deal with the Qataris that some of these unfrozen Iranian funds are actually going to be used to purchase American farm products and then feed the people of Iran. And so again, the inspectors heading into Iran and also the purchase of American farm goods, two major agenda items for the Americans. The Vice President also laid out some of the pillars that were takeaways from the meeting in Switzerland. And one has to do with that deconfliction line to ensure that if shooting starts again, ultimately there's a way to rein back in all parties. Now, we don't know if the Israelis are part of that deconfliction. So far, according to our reporting, they have not signed any sort of document or agreed to terms as it relates to their activity in southern Lebanon. And as we heard just last hour in the remarks that we aired from the leader of Hezbollah, Naim Qassem, they want to see a full Israeli withdrawal from southern Lebanon. The other issue that the vice president talked about is the Strait of Hormuz, saying that the technical details in working out how this will advance in the future were actually agreed to in Switzerland. We heard yesterday from President Trump, who left open the option of actually taking over the Strait of Hormuz, saying that the United States could act as a guardian angel of the strait and actually take a percentage of the oil that passes through.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast, and it's More War Monday, and we're really starting to talk more about peace than war, which gives us all hope, because most Americans, ladies and gentlemen, and I mean like over 70%, want to see this deal work. Most Americans want to see this deal work. And I think the president's got his finger on the pulse of the American people, but more importantly than that, he understands his own foreign policy. And my guest today is Todd Wood, CEO of CDM Press and a Pentagon correspondent officially. And a man of the world in Lebanon. Todd, you have spent a lot of time in Lebanon over the last year. I've interviewed you a couple of times while you were there. Just remind everybody exactly what the situation is between the Lebanese government, Hezbollah, and Israel.
in 2 weeks. We're actually opening a paper there, a newspaper with the Christian community in Beirut. So we're going to be very focused on trying to bring the perspective of the Christians in the Middle East to the forefront in the news cycle, which has been lacking in many jurisdictions, Iraq, Syria, elsewhere. So we're excited about that. Don't have a name yet, but it's coming. But essentially, Lebanon, the Levant, has been a melting pot of different religions, and whether it be Sunni, Shia, Druze, Jewish, Christian, over the millennia. And the Lebanon is very mountainous, and the mountain Lebanon area was a kind of a sanctuary against a lot of the Ottoman invaders and the Seljuks and other Arab armies that came into that area, the Crusades. Communities that were marginalized and persecuted, and they would go into the mountains to like be isolated from the rest of the world and kind of survive as a civilization. So that's what the Christians did during the Arab conquest and the birth of Islam. And so that still exists. You still have the Christian community, the Maronite Catholics primarily in that region of Mount Lebanon. You have one of the other groups that was marginalized over the centuries with the Shias. And so they kind of formed in southern Lebanon. And then you have the Sunnis in Syria and elsewhere. So in the Druze, it's a real mixture still of populations. It's a Christian-run country by law. When the government of Lebanon was established, and the other minority, or not minorities, other religious sects have different positions in the cabinet. But my goal is to just, it used to be a 70% Christian country, but like with Iraq and Syria having their Christian populations decimated after these wars, they're down below 40%. So it's important. We want those Christians to remain there, and we want a lot of the Lebanese diaspora to come back. Because a lot of them have fled because of the wars. So I think it's highly important to find some kind of economic, kind of like the Abraham Accords solution in Lebanon, because the 40% of the population is Shia. So, and 40% of the Lebanese army is Shia. So, maybe 30 to 40%. So how are you going to, disarm Hezbollah when a big part of your population is supporting them primarily? So it's a real problem. And what they don't want is the Sunnis to come in out of Syria, Golani, the former Al-Qaeda guy, and try to disarm, because there's 2 million Sunnis in Lebanon that won't go back from the Syrian civil war. And that causes demographic issues against the Christians, causes economic problems, birth rate issues, and, future demographics. So it's a real mess. I don't think that is going to be solved militarily unless you just ethnically cleanse southern Lebanon. And that is happening to some extent right now, but I think the solution is some kind of win-win for everybody. We got to find what that is. I'm not smart enough to know what that is, but I think that's what you got to find, that golden ticket.
Yeah, I mean, the complicated issue is that when you look at it on the surface and just casually observe what's been happening the last 4 weeks, just set a line 4 weeks back. Hezbollah has been acting like they always act. They shoot missiles and rockets at Israel. Israel has gone into the southern part of Lebanon to try to stop that. They're occupying some of it now, large portions of it, actually. So now Hezbollah is killing Israeli soldiers inside of Lebanon, and Israel's responding
every day.
And Israel's responding to defend itself, which it has a right to do. Vice President Vance, in his press conference last Thursday, said that Israel has a right to defend itself. But now we have this peace deal emerging. The Iranians are at the table. Don't they command and control Hezbollah and what it's doing?
Pretty much, yes. And so that's the key that picks the lock, right? You need to find a way to get them to stop forcing or enabling Hezbollah to, threaten Israel. And that if you can figure that out, then you have a peaceful solution. And so the president has a big job, and he's been. And I will say that there's extremists in the Israeli side too. You got Ben Gvir, who's coming out every day, bomb, Beirut. It's not helpful, right? And you've had Christian communities been hurt in southern Lebanon, which is not helpful, in Tyre and other places. So, I'm obviously not anti-Israel, but I am pro-Christian. So in that region, and I want to highlight their suffering and their I guess struggles to maintain we need the Christians to stay where Jesus walked, right? and that's important. And so I want to find a way to do that, to help do that.
Yeah, I said last week when I was talking about this that the Israeli leadership and the United States need to come together and figure out, what the response needs to be depending on what the Hezbollah guys do, so they're not every day disrupting the peace process.
Yes.
And it sounds like they may have done that, because I saw an announcement earlier this morning that said Israel has decided to dial it back a little bit in their responses.
I saw that. Yeah.
Hezbollah. Now it's unconfirmed. And with
well, you've got a real problem. You've got a real problem with the Israelis.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you got a real problem in the South, because Israelis, you mentioned, are getting killed. They're getting killed. A lot of soldiers are being hit by these FPV drones. It's a real issue, and nobody's figured out how to defend against this, because you can't. They're fiber optic cables, and you just got them flying in. They're very hard to detect, and you're seeing soldiers and tanks, destroyed in southern Lebanon almost every day, and that's putting pressure on the Israelis. And that, of course, when you see people get killed, you want to respond, right? So it's a vicious circle that we got to find a way to stop, and again, find a way to build up that community. That you're not going to get the Shias out of Lebanon, you're not going to get the Sunnis out of Lebanon, or the Christians, and you just got to find a way to make it so that they can function together.
What I wanted to ask you is, are the Hezbollah Lebanese, or are they Iranians?
They are Lebanese. From that community has been there for centuries. It wasn't like they just put them in there. I mean, because as I said, the Shias were persecuted under the Arab armies, the caliphates. So when they, controlled Jerusalem and all that, the Shias escaped. And Lebanon's been a place of respite from all the persecution for centuries. So that's where those people come from. Of course, Iranians have put in operatives and people in there that aren't indigenous to the area, but there's actually not a hatred between the Sunni Shia and the Christians in Lebanon. There's a wary tension, but I wouldn't say there's a hatred like there is with Israel and Hezbollah. So it's really interesting situation. So I think the economic way forward, because you're not going to solve it. I don't think there's a military solution unless you just flatten the place and kill everybody and start over. And, maybe the flood will come. I don't know, but that's what I see.
I mean, I don't know if there's an economic solution, because Hezbollah, of all the proxies, has been the worst and the most ideological from a Islamist perspective. They're suicidal. They don't care if they live or die.
That's true. That's true.
They're worse than Hamas. So if they ever got loose in Israel, October 2023, October 7th is going to look like a cakewalk, probably.
Well, I think that's why you have to have Iran stop funding them and arming them and enabling them. If you can cut that, then you have maybe a way forward. But other than that,
we've crushed their nuclear program to the point where they're negotiating. We've destroyed their Air Force. They have no Air Force. They have no Navy to speak of, other than the little fishing boats, the speedboats.
But I hear that a lot. I don't think that's relevant. I mean, the Navy and the Air Force were not their firepower. It was the missiles. Missiles.
Well, we've demolished most of their launchers.
Yeah.
They may even have a large missile inventory left, but we demolished the launchers. So they're. What else can we do to get them to get Hezbollah to stop? The question.
I think the Strait of Hormuz is actually a lever that Trump was using for a while. I think this may buy time to build pipelines across the desert, so you don't have to put everything through the strait, and you could just block it off at some point and say, you know what, nobody's getting through. I'm sorry, we're done until you stop. That, to me, that's the only leverage. But that creates worldwide panic in the energy markets, and maybe the world is not ready for that yet. Maybe in 2 years they might be. If we can build up some alternative distribution for the hydrocarbons.
Yeah. Yeah, and pipelines are one way to do it, but pipelines can be destroyed.
Sure.
And these drones are really
Yeah,
they're
it's a
hard
mess.
they're hard to detect and hard to track and hard to
Yeah,
target.
they
And
sure
knock
are.
them down. They just are.
They sure are.
And the United States and its allies have not done a good job, I think, in development, research and development.
Completely agree. We dropped the
defenses
ball
against
big time.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's coming, partly due to a war that I don't like whatsoever and don't think we should be involved in, and that's the Russia-Ukraine war, which we're going to talk about in the next couple of segments. But even that has not resulted in any high-end research and development on defending against these things. That's why so many people are dying on both sides.
I agree.
Every day.
The Israelis can't defend against it. They can't in southern. They can't defend against it.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the Ukrainians got some of their ideas from the Israelis
Totally.
for tank
Yes.
defense.
Yes.
As have we. Well, we got to take another break. We'll be right back. It's More Monday. We're on Worldview Tube and X-Space's simulcast, and I'm Rob Maness.
At a certain age, you stop chasing younger. You start protecting what helps you feel steady, strong, and well. Your body's collagen matters. It supports the structure of your skin, joints, and connective tissue. But as the years go by, your body needs more support from the inside. That's where Bella Grace Elixir comes in. Bella Grace Elixir combines Verisol collagen, the world's most clinically proven collagen, with Asteryl astaxanthin and cat's claw in a proprietary blend designed to help support the processes that reconstruct collagen, while also offering antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. And this isn't just for women. It's for men and women who want to age with more confidence, more care, and a daily wellness routine that supports the body from within. One simple elixir, thoughtfully formulated for whole body wellness. Take care of the body that has carried you this far. Order Bella Grace Elixir today at melissahousebg.com.
Very good conversation yesterday with President Zelensky and President Putin. And I see maybe we can do something there. I really do. I think they're both open to it. So now that this is finished, we're going to be focusing on that, see if we can get that one done. 25,000 people a month are dying, mostly soldiers, and that shouldn't happen. But had two very good conversations yesterday. We'll be talking about it. Then we had a really exciting, I think maybe one of the most incredible evenings in the history of the White House. So we had an evening last night with the fighters, and I was very happy. I called last night, very late last night, to congratulate you.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's War Monday. My guest today is CDM Press CEO Todd Wood, who has a background in special operations, helicopter flying, and a lot of time on the ground in Ukraine. And Todd, I just wanted to shift to Ukraine, Russia, because they really are linked, I think, with this conflict in the Middle East, in more than just the fact that Russia and China are allies of Iran. There's a lot more going on, I think, that might have some impact on bringing this to a resolution. But I got to tell you, man, the site I go to the most to look at ground movement is the Institute of War. They don't generally lie on their maps. Now, if you read the words, I think they do a little propagandizing in the pro-Ukraine area, but their ground maps generally have been borne out to be accurate with very minimal need for correction and everything. And it looks like the Russians on the ground are still doing what the Russians do.
Yeah.
They're moving forward. You know?
Yes.
Is that correct? I mean, I'm hearing for about a month that the Ukrainians are pushing back and the Russians are stalled, and that's not what I saw on the maps this morning when I went and checked it.
No, it's not. And I was just trying to bring up the Konstantinivka was the recent village or I guess city that was overrun by the Russians, which is a very strategic area, and Krasnoyarsk is the next one. And that just basically opens up the flatlands to Kiev. So the Russians are still marching, still very steadily. and taking territory. And there's complete lies in the media about that. And there's been a massive, you see these coordinated campaigns across everything. Russia's losing. I literally see the same sentences everywhere coming out. And Ukraine is having an effect. They are getting a lot of technology for long-range strikes. They're causing the Russians a lot of problems with their oil and gas. They're hitting targets the Russians can't defend against, way over in Siberia, 2,000 kilometers away. The British are funding this war, and MI6 and the British military are giving them the Storm Chasers or Storm Shadow or whatever that missile is, long-range missile. So this is I consider it a British EU war against Russia at this point. And I don't think it's going to end well unless it stops. I put out an article this morning. Today is the 200 or the anniversary of Operation Barbarossa, I think it was called, where the Nazis invaded Russia and literally 50 million people or so died across the whole front. And
Napoleon.
We don't understand the scale of destruction that is going on. And while this happens, you have Zelensky out honoring Nazi officials. Poland now is pissed off. I mean, Zelensky's threatening Poland.
I thought that was propaganda.
No, it's very true.
Okay.
It's very true. He named a unit after a Banderite, which is a Nazi guy who was, killed a bunch of thousands of Poles in World War II. So, they try to slough it off, but it's real that he's threatening the Polish government now. He's threatening Belarus with another war, with another front. He's getting a little arrogant because he's getting a lot of weapons from the EU and money. Finally got that 90 billion or whatever, and a lot of his long-range missiles. And so I'm worried that this is going to get out of control. And I think Trump is right to completely back away. I hope he does the last 5 or 10% and gets us out of it, because we don't want to be drawn into this conflict on the continent. We just don't.
Yeah, as I was prepping for the show, I looked at Foreign Minister Lavrov's, the Russian Foreign Minister's press conference that he had not too long ago. I think it was just a few days ago or late last week. And one of the comments that got my attention was that he said, now he's not ranting. He's not a guy to rant and rave and that kind of stuff. He's pretty level-headed. He said, look, when he was asked about President Trump getting attention back on the Russia-Ukraine thing and getting the peace, he said that's all, essentially, he said that's all well and good, but Marco Rubio has been in the Senate saying that we're the people we can't be mediators in this because we're supporting Ukraine. And that surprised me. And then Lavrov went on to say that changed what was agreed to in Alaska. There's been no news coverage of any of that.
No.
And I'm surprised by that, because that's the kind of stuff Macron says. Matter of fact, there's a clip of him saying it. France is not a mediator, and Europe is not a mediator because we're supporting the Ukrainians. That sounds like Rubio may be on their page.
Well,
instead of President Trump's America First page.
There's a split in the administration, and Rubio is definitely on the other side, and Vance is on the other side. And I think that's why you've seen Vance being promoted in the negotiations, and also in other ways kind of laying the preparation, because the bad guys, for lack of a better word, don't want Vance in office and don't want him to be able to continue the Trump agenda. There's a lot going on behind. I had a source at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum last week, 2 weeks ago, in St. Petersburg, Russia. It's their big economic conference. People from all over the world come. I tried to go, but they declined my media pass, unfortunately. I guess they see me as a little too truth-telling. I don't know. But so the
Russians declined your media pass?
Yeah.
Shocker.
Maybe it's because I'm a Pentagon correspondent. I don't know. But
I don't know. Pro-America. I don't know.
Yeah. So, but what Camille Dmitriev put out is that there has been an agreement signed for continuing design and development of the Bering Straits tunnel with the Boring Company, I believe, with Elon Musk's company. That wasn't an official U.S. to Russian, but it is a kind of the next level down, right? I mean, they're planning a lot of economic cooperation.
That was part of the Alaska talks, wasn't it?
I think so. So there is stuff happening, I think Trump would like to have economic cooperation with Russia, especially in the Arctic. There's so much resources that it would be a godsend for us.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I agree. I think the answer is much like it is more than likely in the Middle East is economic. That's why the Abraham Accords appear to be having success. Why he wants to get more people, especially the Saudis, into the Abraham Accords. I can see something like that happening because the Russian forces aren't going to go. They're not going anywhere. They're actually moving forward.
And there's a narrative that the Russian economy is collapsing. That's not happening either.
Yeah.
So.
We'll talk about the Ukrainians and what they're doing on the attacks in the last segment. But I got a hand up in the audience. Go ahead, Joe.
We have Cat the Hammer, sir.
Cat the Hammer.
Hey, guys. I got a question for you. It's kind of, I don't want to sound like a simpleton about this, but what I noticed when all this started happening, where we were going to the table with Iran, everybody became, of course, an expert. And they were already deciding what Trump was doing or not doing. And I don't even think they understand that all of it has been signed as a memorandum of understanding. And if you've worked for any department like I have, being a deputy, all that is that we're acknowledging what they're basically going to talk about. So my simple question is this: do you believe that Iran will truly agree to completely disarm their nuclear abilities? Because I guess they balked at that. JD Vance mentioned that they balked at it when it was mentioned, and he said that's something we're obviously going to have to negotiate. I'm just wondering if you guys felt that they'll truly do it, or will they just do it to get off the hook and turn around and just start up again? I was just not trying to be simple, but that's kind of where I was wondering.
I think that I'll just respond. I don't think they will completely get rid of their nuclear program. I think the goal would be to delay it, 10, 20 years, and then try to find another solution. I don't think you're going to get complete disarmament. That's not going to happen. And so I think you need to find a way to get maybe a chance for some kind of new government to get in over time. That's my thought. And I don't think we need to go to war over that. If it's delayed for 20 years, I think that's good enough right now. I mean, what do you think, Rob?
Well, it really all depends on their behavior. The North Korean guy, the propaganda said that, he's crazy. He's going to use nuclear weapons on Japan, et cetera, if he gets them. But then the Clinton administration in the background just let him go ahead and do it. And he acts like a rational actor, what we call a rational actor.
Yeah.
The problem with the Iranians, and the reason why it's on the table as a vital interest for America that they don't have them, is that we think they'll use them when they get them. I'm not so sure that is ground truth, because nobody really knows. But if their behavior changes through this process, and this process,
that's my point.
Yeah, this process, Cat, has to be a very aggressive monitoring of performance. It cannot be a verification progress like we used to do with the Soviet Union, where we had what's called the Open Skies Treaty, and one of our special airplanes would go fly over there and have people over there and land at places and look at airplanes and look at gear and those kind of things to make sure they were complying with the treaty. It's not that kind of verification. It is Iran performs, then they get rewarded. That's the only way this will work. But I see that they're going to try to keep it, and their way they're going to do it, more than likely, is to say, well, we've got to have nuclear power. We have to have some level of enriching uranium, which they don't. The Qataris have nuclear power, and you can buy fuel rods from many, many people in the world. So it all depends on how we handle it going forward. And someday President Trump will be gone. It's more important than ever to vote for JD Vance in 2028, folks, by the way, is because you want to continue this going forward, this aggressive confirmation that they're performing the way they're supposed to. That's the only way that it's going to get done. And in the end, if they become rational actors, they may end up with them anyway. But they're pretty strong. Nobody wants to invade Iran. And Andrew Colbert was saying, what would it take, 50,000, 100,000? No, I've done the math on this. It takes 1 million ground troops, ground troops to invade and occupy that country. 1 million.
No,
that's not even counting the support from around around the area.
We don't have that. That's not an option, unfortunately. Trump can
so-
threaten taking Cargo Island and shutting down the oil, maybe, but
Which we can
even
do
that's-
that, but
yeah.
that's if they become
It's
sitting
problematic.
ducks,
Yes,
it
I
becomes
know.
problematic pretty quickly.
Yes.
So we'll see how it goes, but I think we have a good opportunity and we should give it a chance, as JD Vance said. We'll be right back with Todd Wood on the Rob Maness Show.
Introducing Worldview Tube Vault. Over 35 years of radio broadcasts, television programs, documentaries, and ebooks. Plus, Worldviewpedia, our powerful search engine for instant worldview and Bible research. Join for as little as $7.99 a month. And now, Vault members get something brand new, courses. Our very first course is here, the Book of Revelation with Brannon House. 53 in-depth lessons, complete with overview quizzes, walking you verse by verse through one of the most important books in Scripture. Getting started is simple. Go to worldviewtube.com/vault and join today. Already a member? Visit worldviewtube.com, click the person icon in the top right, and log in. Then hover over Vault in the menu and select Courses. That's it. You're in. Join WorldviewTube Vault today at worldviewtube.com/vault.
Let's move on now. A Russian drone attack reportedly struck a cargo vessel heading towards Ukraine, killing one crew member and forcing others to abandon ship. The incident comes amid a sharp escalation in attacks between Moscow and Kyiv, while efforts to negotiate a ceasefire remain stalled. Ukrainian authorities say the vessel had crew members from Egypt, Turkey, and India. Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister Oleksiy Kuleba said that the Russian drone strike set fire to the Panama-flagged cargo vessel Victress as it sailed towards Ukraine. According to Ukrainian officials, a 58-year-old Egyptian cook was killed in the attack. 8 crew members, including citizens of Turkey and India, escaped on a life raft after the vessel suffered severe damage and was left unable to continue its voyage. Ukraine's Navy reported a large fire aboard the cargo ship and accused Russia of endangering civilian maritime traffic in the Black Sea. Kuleba also claimed that 2 additional vessels sailing under the flags of Palau and Belize were targeted, though no casualties were reported in those incidents. Meanwhile, Russian attacks elsewhere in Ukraine reportedly killed 2 civilians. At least 1 person was killed and 3 others were injured in southern Odessa after Russia fired an Iskander ballistic missile. According to local authorities, vehicles and fuel storage tanks caught fire after the strike hit an agricultural facility. Another person was reportedly killed in a drone attack on Zaporizhia. Local authorities say several others were injured and residential buildings were damaged. In Russia, authorities temporarily suspended operations at all 4 Moscow airports after hundreds of Ukrainian drones were reportedly intercepted overnight. Russia's defense ministry says its air defenses destroyed over 300 Ukrainian drones across the country. Earlier, 4 people were killed and fuel sales were suspended in Russian-occupied Crimea after a massive Ukrainian barrage hit the Black Sea Peninsula. Ukraine says it targeted military and energy facilities in Crimea, Moscow's key logistics base for its 4-year military offensive in one of the biggest attacks on the peninsula in recent months. Ukrainian forces also struck the Crimean bridge connecting the peninsula to Russia, as well as radar and air defense systems. Ukraine has in recent months also stepped up drone attacks on energy facilities in Russia, striking targets deep behind the front lines. Earlier this week, it hit a large refinery in Moscow twice.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday. We're live on Worldview Tube, and you just heard it right there. That's a good. That was a good overview of the both sides attacking via ballistic missile, drone, air attacks, and they're hitting their energy infrastructure. Is what it appears to me. My guest today is Todd Wood, who's done a lot of operating in this part of the world as a special operations helicopter pilot and as CEO of CDM Press, has reporters on the ground in Ukraine. Todd, that was a pretty good overview of the tit for tat that's now happening, that Ukraine is now able to do. But that's about all they're able to do, isn't it?
It's as far as militarily, yes. I mean, they're able to strike targets in Russia. They have a robust long-range strike ability provided by the British primarily. And so there are Storm Shadow missiles. But there's also another thing that none of the press in the world really is talking about. There's been a rash of videos come out of Ukrainian FPV drones targeting Russian civilians in the Kursk and Bryansk and that whole area along the Ukrainian border. There's videos of FPV drones, hitting cars, there was a Belarusian athletic bus full of students that got hit, and a bunch of kids several were killed and a bunch injured. And so that caused a big stink with Belarus. And Zelensky saying, well, you got a week to stop giving Russia any equipment. We're going to attack you.
Okay.
So the Ukrainians have a point system that's been unearthed where they give these drone operators points if they kill anything in Russia, even civilians. And if they get enough points, they get more equipment, more food, trips to go back for some R&R or whatever. So that's what's going on. And you don't really hear that reported very much. I mean, both sides are committing war crimes. So it's Christian against Christian. And that's what I want people to understand. You need to stop that. And you need to find a peace solution. And I'm sorry, but Ukraine's going to have to make peace. I don't think you said Russia is continuing to advance. That's true. They could advance a lot faster, but they're not. I don't think they want Western Ukraine. That's the hotbed of Nazi activity in the West and Lviv and all. They don't want to govern that. They would like to just make a line and say, okay, let's have peace. But Ukraine doesn't want that. And the British are pushing them not to. But go ahead.
Yeah. That's been going on the whole time. The British, Boris Johnson went in and stopped the peace deal in the first place before the shooting even started, for God's sake. So do you think that Starmer resigning is going to have any positive impact on this?
No, because I don't think the British politicians have much of an impact. I think it's run by the security services, and so the king and his deal. Maybe if you got somebody with some cojones in there, they could do something. But I think until the power structure decides that it's not in their interest to continue the war is going to keep going. So that's why it's so important for the U.S. to remove our support, in my opinion. And it's not good what's happening.
So what would that look like if we remove our support? I also want to point out to folks, if you go back and watch that clip I just played, the Russian target of the ballistic missile was Odessa. And it's the port in Odessa. That's their one warm water port that's left in Ukraine. I've been warning for a long time that if they don't come to figure out a way to come to the peace table, they're going to lose that too.
Yes.
It won't surprise me.
Completely agree. I mean, and that's, Ukraine made a big deal that they've shut some bridges down to Crimea and they've hurt the gas situation there. But what people don't understand is Russians have a very high tolerance for pain. When they decide that their country is being attacked, suffering is an art form. I mean, you go back through history, they don't mind. And Ukraine is not going to win this militarily. The only thing, we're going to fight to the last Ukrainian. And that is, I know a lot of Ukrainians. I had a refugee family in my house for 8 months from Kiev. I know them. They were good to me. I was there during the invasion. They got me out of the country. I've got people on the ground, and I'm not anti-Ukrainian. I'm anti this government that won't make peace. Because what I see happening is the population, the Christians are fighting Christian, which is horrific. It shouldn't be that way. And it's being pushed by outside forces.
Are the Turks part of the outside forces?
I think Turkey is more focused on Israel. I would say they're more focused on Syria in that area, and the Kurds and Iran than Ukraine. I don't see that as a big focus of Erdogan. I think it's the British and the French and the Germans who are involved in keeping this going. So maybe with Starmer gone, maybe that pulls one of those pins out. I don't know. But the globalist leaders in the EU are taking the EU in a very dark place. And I actually think they want a war with Russia. And because the Russians are very close to saying, okay, you're sending these storm shadows to Siberia and blowing up plants 2,000 kilometers away. You know what? We're just going to start shelling those plants in Berlin. And that's close. So people don't realize how close we are. And I think that's what the EU wants, because then they can stay in power. Oh, the evil Russians, and we just have to, stop it. So,
and the problem with that is that Europe doesn't have the ground force or the air force really to respond to that appropriate in the way. So who's going to get called to do that? Exactly.
And that's why we have to get out of this. We don't want some NATO Article 5 treaty obligation to go continue a global war where our sons and daughters are going to die. I don't want that. It needs to end, and we have to be forceful about it. They want to come after me. I don't care. I'm not pro-Russian. I'm pro-humanity. The war needs to end.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pro-peace, and not peace at any price. But I just don't think I've never thought the Russians were capable of rolling across Western Europe these days.
It's been 5 years, and they haven't even taken Donbass.
Yeah,
two oblasts.
They can't get back to the Dnieper, right?
They're going to come take, Paris. Give me a freaking break.
Yeah,
it's not happening. They don't have it. So anyway.
So what would it look like? What is the U.S. supporting? What are we doing right now? Are we still sending them weapons? Because
I can only say what Trump says, and he says we're selling them. My sense is that we've pretty much removed all financial support. There's probably some intelligence sharing. We were running the war out of East Baden with all our NATO Army generals for a while. I hope that's been turned off. I think the British are really in control of this now, and I think there's been some kind of handoff. And I think we just need to we don't want to get dragged into a World War III on the continent. We just don't. That's what they want, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I don't think the Russians are wanting to start that.
No, they don't. They don't.
I mean, so from an economic perspective, Todd, lay out what you think could work if the president gets behind it.
Well, first, Zelensky's got to go. He's the puppet in there for the British to keep the war going. So you find some way to draw a line in the sand. This is the new border. Leave it alone. Let's have some peacekeepers in there if you want, whatever. And then you start doing business with both. You just offer economic incentives across the Arctic with Russia, with, Ukraine's going to have to be rebuilt. There's going to be a lot of money to be made. Let's move on to making money phase. Let's stop blowing things up and killing people. Ukraine's losing 25,000 a month. Russia is much less than that. Every time they do a body swap, it's like 10 to 1. There's 1,000 Ukrainians and 41 Russians or something like that. So it's really lopsided. And what is happening is they're depopulating Ukraine. So now you've seen all the mobilization where they're kidnapping kids off the street, sending them to the front. Even women now are getting drafted. And then you have Ukraine coming out and saying they're going to have a mercenary army, where half their army is going to be from not Ukrainian. I mean, tell me how that ends well.
Ukrainian Foreign Legion, huh?
Yeah.
Well, why haven't the French committed their Foreign Legion? Do they still have it?
Well, I think there are a lot of French and a lot of British troops in there now. I think the number I saw was the French admitted there was 22,000. The Russians say there's 70,000. There's a lot of mercs in there right now, definitely.
Yeah.
So.
All right, man. Yeah, I mean, hopefully the president can get some focus back on this and work some magic. And let JD go be the architect of this plan, like Lindsey Graham is saying is of the Middle East plan. But it sounds to me like it's starting to work. I mean, the meeting over the last 3 days was the hammering out of the technical aspects of the MOU that result in a deal. I mean, that's the beginning of that. And if he got all four things he set out to do, that tells me that we are on a track that's potentially got a good end state to it. From an American perspective, for sure. And probably from a whole Middle East perspective and Europe, too, if we can get this thing settled between Russia and Ukraine and the rest of Europe. Well, Todd, tell folks where they can find you guys. I got about 30 seconds left.
Sure. CDM.press. Put us in your daily scan. You'll get news you're not going to get anywhere else. I guarantee you. If you go to the top menu, there's all our other sites you can find and everything else we do, polling and events and all that. But just put us in your scan, give us a few clicks a day. It really would help us. We have a no ad subscription if you want to not see any ads on your phone. But anyway, that's the best way, is just put us in your scan and hit us a few times a day.
All right, man. Well, what's the name of the new Christian paper in Lebanon going to be?
I don't know. We've got 5 or 6 names. We haven't decided yet. I'm kind of leaving it up to them, because I was hoping to try to resurrect an old one like we've done in the Northeast on some of the revolutionary papers, but they're saying those names carry baggage. So we have to find something cool and new, and it's coming. I'll let you know when we get it.
Christ Gazette.
It's not going to be a religious paper, but it's going to have a Christian perspective. Yes.
All right, brother. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. God bless you.
Take care. All right.
All right, folks. Tomorrow's Training Tuesday. I'll see you then. We're here all week. I'm Rob Maness.
What if millions around the world could access Bible teaching and worldview training for free right now?